He didn't run like himself, not yet. But when it mattered, Lamar Jackson threw like himself. In his first game back from a hamstring strain, he stepped under the lights, clipped the rust off, and carved the Miami Dolphins into 4 tidy touchdown passes. By the time the night ended, it wasn't just a win. It felt like the Ravens rediscovering a pulse. There are moments in a season where a team can stop pretending and start believing. For the Ravens, that moment came on a Thursday night when Jackson completed 18 of 23 throws for 204 yards, posted a passer rating north of 140, and added a clutch cadence that had been missing while he rehabbed. The stat line reads clean. The film reads cleaner. Crisp timing, decisive reads, and an old knack for making tight window throws that force defenses to pick their poison. Reuters Miami looked like a team trying to remember how to finish. The Dolphins moved the ball early enough to make you nervous, then tripped over themselves. Penalties, a missed 35-yard field goal, 2 teammates colliding on a play, and a fourth-quarter sequence of miscommunication that left their offense looking amateurish. When self-inflicted mistakes compound, even good teams can be flattened by a steady, mistake-free opponent. That's exactly what happened here. Sports.yahoo.com. Jackson's touchdowns told the tale of a leader easing back into command. 2 went to Mark Andrews, the kind of tight end chemistry you build with timing and trust, and another found Charlie Kolar. The cake was iced when Rashod Bateman caught a 9th minute of the third quarter strike that made it 28-6 and finally ended the suspense. Those throws weren't fireworks so much as surgical strikes, precise, purposeful, and impossible to politely ignore. Reuters. What felt most promising wasn't the sheer number of touchdowns, but the choices behind them. He didn't need to recreate his scrambling highlight reel to be dominant. Instead, Jackson picked apart the intermediate seams, put the ball where his guys could make plays after the catch, and trusted an offense that has been grinding to find its identity. That's advanced-level quarterbacking. Manage the variables, let the playbook breathe, and pounce when the defense shows a weakness. BaltimoreRavens.com. You can't write a line about this game without mentioning Derrick Henry. The veteran runner put up 119 yards on 19 carries, chewing clock and bad angles alike, and gave Jackson comfortable down-and-distance looks the Ravens desperately needed. When your run game can grind the middle and your quarterback can turn seam throws into touchdowns, you've built an evening that's resistant to flukes. That balance turned a nervous first half into a decisive second-half statement. Reuters, defensively, Baltimore made corrections after a tense opening. Miami had chances in the first half, a couple of drives that should have yielded points, but the Ravens tightened schematically and forced a couple of turnovers that swung momentum. When an opponent's mistakes pile on top of your execution, the scoreboard stops being a suggestion and starts being a verdict. The Dolphins, who simply couldn't find a consistent answer, left South Florida staring at a 2-7 record and a lot of hard questions. Sky Sports, there's also a psychological angle. A franchise can survive a 1-5 stretch if it's still certain it has a star who can tilt games. The Ravens' season wasn't rescued in one night, but it was reframed. Jackson's presence recenters the offense. His ability to read pressure, buy a fraction more time, and then make a throw converts doubt into opportunity. For a team that was asking whether it could still compete, this was an emphatic yes, at least for now. ESPN.com. Does this mean everything is fixed? Of course not. Hamstrings are delicate things. Confidence returns at its own pace. You don't get your old quickness back simply because the uniform fits again. But Jackson's limited rushing, deliberate, cautious, was the right play. He walked back into the pocket with more of a conductor's patience than a daredevil's swagger, and the result was football that felt both veteran and fresh. That's a good sign for the stretch run. ESPN.com. For Miami, the assignment is simple but brutal. Clean up the basics. You can't win on the road if you miss the easy plays and gift the other team field position. Penalties, blown assignments, a missed field goal, those small failures compound into a loss that looks worse on tape than it does in the box score. Mike McDaniel's group has talent, but talent needs structure. The Dolphins showed flashes, they just couldn't keep the lights on. FoxSports.com. Looking ahead, the Ravens get something precious, breathing room to rebuild rhythm. The NFL is a league of runs and streaks. Sometimes the difference between a midseason panic and a playoff push is a single performance that restores belief. Jackson's return didn't erase the early record, but it did provide a blueprint. Run the ball, protect your quarterback, and let the playmakers work in space. Do those things consistently, and you make up ground faster than you think. Reuters. Close your eyes and picture the final image. Jackson in the locker room, jersey damp, voice steady, saying it felt good to be back. Not triumphant, not theatrical, just realistic and hungry. That's the mood you want when a season hangs in the balance, humility plus competence. The Ravens didn't solve every problem on Thursday night, but they reminded the NFL they still have their ace. For opponents, that's the part you hate to see. For Ravens fans, it's the first true breath in weeks. ESPN.com. And if you're keeping score in story arcs rather than wins and losses, a hamstring that sidelined a superstar turned into a comeback night that recentered a team. The NFL is relentless. It offers no refunds, but it does give second acts. Lamar Jackson just wrote one down in Miami, not the whole sequel, but a strong opening chapter. What happens when the man who can change a season walks back onto the field looking like he's still warming up and then throws 4 touchdown passes anyway? Lamar Jackson came back on Thursday night with a hamstring that had benched him for 4 weeks, and he didn't come out of the tunnel like a superhero. He was guarded, measured, the kind of quarterback who avoided the instinct that made him Lamar, scrambling, improvising, taking off and turning broken plays into highlight reels. You could see it. He rarely ran. He looked tentative in ways that make you hold your breath for a second. Then he threw 4 touchdowns, and the scoreboard read 28-6. The rest of the story is the kind of messy, beautiful sports thing that reminds you why you watch. Let's not pretend the moment wasn't fragile. Hamstrings are funny injuries. They don't just heal in a day. They sit in your head. For 4 weeks, the Ravens practiced without their engine, and everyone asked the same question. When Lamar's back, will he be him? The answer against Miami was complicated. Not entirely, not yet, but enough to flip the outlook for a team sitting 1-5. That's the weird math of football. You don't need perfection to change the equation. You need presence. From the first drive, Jackson's return had the texture of a man testing the sound of his own cleats. Plays were cleaner, throws crisper than the confidence felt. Timing wasn't fully rebuilt, but the core mechanics were there. He didn't rip off runs, and that mattered, not because he couldn't, but because he chose not to. Maybe it's prudence. Maybe it's a coach whispering caution. Either way, Baltimore found other ways to win. 4 touchdown passes later, and the Dolphins didn't reach the end zone once. That's not luck. That's a leader exerting control even while he's not at 100%. And then there was Miami. Oh boy. The Dolphins looked like a team taking a turn through a comedy of errors. A first-quarter fumble deep in their own territory gifted Mark Andrews a touchdown. A false start turned a daring 4th and 1 into a 35-yard field goal try, which missed. 2 defenders literally ran into each other on a play and felt like cartoon characters, setting up another Andrews score. Later, a miscommunication on 4th and 2 left Tua's pass wildly overthrown. At the half, instead of a miracle Hail Mary, the Dolphins took a sack. Coach Mike McDaniel called it self-inflicted wounds, and that's a kind way of saying Miami shot itself in the foot repeatedly. These mistakes aren't just bloopers on a blooper reel. They're a window into a team that can still move the ball. Remember, they beat Atlanta 34-10 last week, but can't execute when it matters. Penalties, misreads, timing failures, those add up. Against a team with even an inkling of momentum, those small errors become big deficits. And Baltimore, with Lamar throwing 3 and 4 touchdown drives, turned Miami's chaos into scoreboard dominance. Let's talk about the Ravens' defense for a second, because they deserve it. This unit was a question mark earlier in the season. Injuries made them porous, play calling inconsistent. But Thursday night marked a shift. The defense, which had been slumping, showed up when it mattered. They created that pressure that forces mistakes. When Tua and the Dolphins tried to play, they found the door closed. Miami didn't reach the end zone. Not once. That's not a fluke. That's structure, schematics, and a front seven who remembered how to bite. But make no mistake, this night belonged to Lamar in terms of narrative. 4 TD passes from a quarterback who was cautious about using his legs, That's the kind of paradox that flips headlines. When you can lead without your primary instrument fully tuned, you're more valuable than a stat line. You're a lever. Teams that have Lamar have a shot every week. Teams without him are counting faces in the crowd. That's the practical reality the Ravens got to feel again. Their ceiling isn't scratched yet. There's a longer arc here, too. The Ravens were 1-5. That is, by most measures, a season teetering toward end it and start over. But football isn't math so much as momentum. A win like this is a tidy pivot. It doesn't fix everything. They'll play tougher opponents, but it clears the fog. The offense looks different with Lamar under center. Plays open, play calls change, opponents prepare differently. Teams fear his wrists, his eyes, his ability to turn disguised coverages into quick strikes. Even half Lamar is a problem for defenses. Fully healthy Lamar is a nightmare. For the Dolphins, it's a reminder that talent alone doesn't override discipline. Jalen Waddle's 36-yard catch was taken off by a tripping call that, replays suggested, might have been wrong. Still, the onus is on the unit to avoid the mistakes that gave Baltimore life. Missed kicks, miscommunications on critical downs, players colliding in the secondary. You can blame calls, you can blame officiating, but when your performance collapses into repeated errors, the simplest diagnosis is that the team didn't execute. There's also an emotional side to Lamar's return that money or metrics can't capture. For teammates, seeing him back, even tentative, changes the emotional tenor in the locker room. You play differently when you know the leader is present. The Ravens felt that electricity, and they used it. For fans, it's hope, pure and stupid and delicious. For critics, it's a moment to test whether recovery narratives hold up under pressure. And for Lamar, it's a calculated first step, a date on a timeline. You came back checked, you delivered, now keep building. We also should acknowledge the coaching wrinkle. Managing a player like Lamar coming off a hamstring is art. You don't want him blowing up his recovery by rehabbing through pain. You also don't want to handcuff the offense so badly that you lose his unique value. The Ravens struck a balance. Let him throw, let the unit operate, and keep the legs in reserve. That game plan worked. It made for a clean scoreline and a low-risk reintroduction. If there's a downside, it's this. The Ravens now have to prove that Thursday night wasn't a gentle one-off correction. They have to string together consistency. The Steelers still sit atop the AFC North, and the Ravens' path back to contention runs through tougher tests than Miami. But the biggest takeaway is simple. When Lamar Jackson is on the field, there's no panic. There's possibility. The Dolphins will go back to their film, pick apart the missed opportunities, and try to fix the little things that became big things. The Ravens will enjoy a night where their headline was hope, not hurt. And Lamar will go home knowing he didn't need to show off his trademark escapes to beat a team that was unraveling on its own. So what do you keep from Thursday night? That a return can be both cautious and decisive. That leadership doesn't always scream. Sometimes it shows up and throws 4 touchdown passes with the restraint of a man protecting his own future. That football seasons tilt on moments like this, a fumble in your own end, a missed field goal, a miscommunication on 4th down. Flip enough of those toward you and suddenly your season feels alive. Lamar didn't sprint into headlines. He walked back in measured and left the scoreboard remembering his name. And when your quarterback can do that, even while holding back, you realize the long season has a pulse again.